Huh.
My brother is really good at playing Pichu. Or at least he was, back in the Melee days. Back when we were in elementary and early middle school, and we played Melee after school, with friends, one-on-one, at Boy Scout get-togethers. My brother would pick Pichu half as a joke, and half because he could genuinely whoop our hinds with that character. Pichu is a bad character. They were added to Melee's roster seemingly as a farce. They're a more fragile clone of Pikachu who hurts themselves with nearly every attack they perform. And yet, in those days before we had any conception of what tier lists and wave dashing and Ken combos were, my brother would destroy everyone with Pichu. So, of course, when the words "everyone is here" streaked across my monitor earlier this year and Pichu showed up on screen not 5 seconds later, the first thing I immediately did was message my brother. His response, naturally, was, "My boy Pichu gonna make Ridley look like a little..." Well, I'll avoid using the language he used for fear of the YouTube secret police, but the point is, he's ready to wreck shop with that little baby electric rodent all over again. And that's why Super Smash Bros. Ultimate matters. Super Smash Bros. Has come so far from being just a party platform fighter with a bunch of Nintendo characters. The Smash franchise of today is about history, it's about legacy, it's about celebrating Nintendo's illustrious lineage from the NES to the Switch, and all the memories and relationships that they've made along the way. Squaresoft more or less abandoned Nintendo to make Final Fantasy 7 through almost 15 on non-Nintendo hardware. So it says something that Cloud Strife, a character that symbolizes Square's move from Nintendo to PlayStation, made it into the Smash Bros. Roster not too long ago. Cloud in Smash is a sign of improving relationships, of healing wounds, and that's to say nothing of those aforementioned non-Nintendo Final Fantasies coming to Switch later in 2019. David Hayter has not voiced a Snake since Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, more than 8 years ago. Hayter's return in Smash Ultimate is a subtle nod from the dev team that they acknowledge and respect the work that Hayter had done throughout the MGS series to make Snake, Snake. Going beyond just corporate history, for many people, Smash Bros. Is community. Smash Bros. Is a competitive sport that highlights creativity and skill and personality, especially on the Melee side of things. People have been playing that game for over a decade and a half. I've met and bonded with some of my closest friends over these games. We've played together, hyped over new games together, flown cross-country to meet and play and have fun. I would even argue that Smash Bros. Is a huge part of the reason that I'm such a Nintendo fan today. My knowledge of gaming before I played Melee extended to Mario and Pokemon and not a lot else. But Smash Bros. Made me curious about games like Zelda, Metroid, Fire Emblem, Star Fox, and some of those games are among my absolute favorites to this day. And this is deliberate. Nintendo no doubt knows that Smash Bros. Is one of their biggest marketing campaigns. Just think of the people who now know about Xenoblade or Kid Icarus Uprising that didn't before Smash 4. But it doesn't come off as insidious marketing. To fans of Xenoblade at the time, myself included, Shulk's inclusion was an honor. It was an acknowledgement from the dev team that, of course, Xenoblade deserves a spot in Nintendo's Hall of Fame. Smash Bros. Inspires people to learn about Nintendo's history, to explore their boundaries. And that would be cool if Nintendo let its history be readily available. And this is the point in the video where we do have to talk about Nintendo's preservation of its history, or its lack thereof. I can't legally play Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, this guy's game, unless I hit up eBay and cough up over $100. And the same goes for a lot of other games that these characters represent. But that's a pretty niche example, so let's tackle this from the perspective of a new, young Smash Ultimate fan. They got the Switch as a holiday present, and if they got it last year, they've probably already played stuff like Mario Odyssey or Breath of the Wild. They could recognize Mario or Link easy. Eventually, this new Smash fan unlocks someone more unfamiliar, and is now interested in the source material. That character's source game is likely not available on the Switch, and while the best way to legally play a lot of retro games is the Virtual Console, that's still locked to the Wii U and 3DS, and good luck finding a Wii U nowadays. And that's to say nothing for games like Mother 3, whose chances of releasing stateside are lesser and lesser by the day. It would be more or less painless to release this back catalog of games on the Switch. I know the Switch is capable of playing Wii games because another console on the same chipset is already playing Wii games in China. And I know it can play Wii U games because almost half of my Switch library is Wii U ports. I understand that Nintendo likes to keep eShop space open for newer games, and that not all of their games are so easy to port, and that licensing is often a major nightmare. But Nintendo has the ROMs, they have the emulation tech, and even if they don't, there are open source solutions out there that they could base it on, which they have done in the past. In an era where Nintendo seems to not really care about preserving its history, a game like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate shines like a beacon. A game that revolves around celebrating Nintendo's history could prove to be a great way to show both Nintendo and its consumers that this history still matters, that people still want to play these old games and discover new favorites, hopefully without having to resort to shady piracy websites. A lot of the games that Smash introduced me to made me who I am. A lot of the friends and family that I bonded with over Smash made me who I am. And I have a feeling that I am far from the only one who can say that. That's why Super Smash Bros. Ultimate matters.